Hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I'm gonna take you through sort of the evolution of my Revenant, because I've been playing around with him all day and I've tried a ton of different stuff, and there were 3 points at which I was really happy with the setup I was using. And I want to go over all 3 of them because I really like them. So the first setup is sort of a quality solo build that's very easy to sustain, but it's not as powerful as the other setups. The second one is focused more towards group play, where you have more enemies, so you have more energy orbs, and energy is generally not as big of a deal, so it's more powerful but not as efficient. And then I got a little bit carried away because I was kind of curious to see what the Revenant can do, so I have an Umbral setup as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the Revenant special. And let's start off with sort of the basic solo quality setup. This one requires 2 Forma, and you're gonna have to add a D and a dash. Now the aura you're gonna use on the Revenant is pretty much up to you. I personally chose Corrosive Projection for some additional armor stripping because it fits the polarity, so that's great. The armor stripping is really good. And I didn't want to use Energy Siphon, which is kind of like the second obvious dash aura that you slap on a frame, because it gets disabled during Dense Macabre, which I like to use a lot. Then, since I like my Warframes to be pretty beefy, I'm running Primed Vigor and Vitality for a ton of health and some extra shields, though you don't have to use Primed Vigor, you can swap it out for something else. However, if you don't have Primed Vigor and you still want your Revenant to be tankier, you can easily substitute it with either Redirection or even Steel Fiber. Next on the menu, I have Primed Continuity, which is here mostly to balance out fleeting expertise so that my enthrall duration isn't too low, but it also reduces the drain on Dense Macabre. Because if an ability drains energy, the efficiency is affected by both efficiency and duration. After that, I'm running Power Drift, Intensify, and Augur Secrets, which gives me more stacks on my Mesmer skin, so it will deflect more damage, and it also increases the damage of Dense Macabre. Then I wanted some range, so I added Stretch, and this is for Enthrall, because the base range on Enthrall is surprisingly short, but it also increases the radius of Dense Macabre, so you're covering a larger area with your lasers. And then comes some efficiency, so I have a fully ranked Streamline and a Fleeting Expertise that's 2 ranks from the top to save on some duration. This is mostly for Enthrall though, because the duration you lose if you max it out is balanced out with the efficiency you gain, so the drain on Dense Macabre is pretty much the same whether it is 2 ranks from the top or maxed out. Now while the damage of Dense Macabre on this setup isn't as great as on the other 2 setups, it is still respectable even when it comes to fighting level 100 enemies, especially when you power it up by holding down the fire button. It does drain more energy that way, but luckily you don't have to hold it down all the way, you can just power it up when you run into a beefier unit. It's just a solid, sort of well-rounded build that will take you through pretty much everything. You can even do sorties with this. As I've said, this is the first setup that I put together on the Revenant that I really liked, because, you know, it's a quality build, and everyone likes quality builds, because while they're not as strong as some more focused builds, they're kind of like the jack-of-all-trades setup, so you can easily enthrall a couple of enemies, put up your Mesmer Shield, then reef through them if you lose some health, and in the end, you can Macabre around and just kill everything you see. Though once again, this is more focused towards solo play, which is why it's so efficient. If you're playing in a party, there is more enemies, which means you're gonna have more energy orbs, and there's also a chance you're gonna have a support frame that's gonna feed you energy, so the efficiency here might be an overkill for party play. Which is why I wanted to tailor my second setup more towards party play, something that does a little bit more damage and is more effective at what it does, but it's more reliant on having other people around to manage energy properly. Now this one is a little bit more expensive, it requires 4 Forma, so on top of the dash and a D, you're also gonna have to add a V, and I added a double dash in the Exile slot because I did want to go into an Umbral build eventually, so I didn't want to screw up the polarity. And it starts off pretty much the same as the first one, so Corrosive Projection is the aura, Primed Vigor for shields and health, then Vitality for even more health, and Primed Continuity to balance out fleeting expertise. But then I wanted to spice up the damage of Dense Macabre a little bit, so while I'm still running Power Drift, I'm now running Blind Rage, that's 2 ranks from the top to save on some efficiency, and Intensify, which gives me a grand total of 226% power strength. Then I once again wanted some extra range, so I added Stretch, and this just seems enough. I tried more range and it seemed like a bit of an overkill, so I think Stretch is about as much as you need on the Revenant. And then comes another change, or the final change. I'm now running a fully ranked Fleeting Expertise to balance out the efficiency loss from Blind Rage, and I'm running Primed Flow instead of Streamline. Now this makes it less sustainable than the first build if you're running solo, but it's better in a party play where you have more energy floating around. Now the damage here is unsurprisingly a lot spicier than on the previous setup, especially when you power it up by holding the fire button. It's also tankier because, as I've mentioned already, the charges on your Mesmer Shield are based on power strength. So you're doing more damage and you're tankier this way, but once again, the sustain is nowhere near as good as on the first one. I mean, just look at this damage. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is not my kind of setup. I generally go for something like the first build, so something less powerful but more efficient and sustainable, but I've tried this in a couple of party setups, even in a sortie, and it worked wonders. It's fantastic. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a blast with this if you have the energy to sustain it. I mean, if you get a Trinity or Harrow or something like that in your party that will constantly feed you energy, yeah, it's gonna be amazing. And finally, we have the Umbral setup, where as usual you have to Forma everything with the exception of the slots where you want to put your Umbral mods. Now, I'm still running corrosive projection here, but once again you can run whatever you want, and the rest of the setup is basically a more powerful and efficient version of the previous one, but it doesn't have as much range. So I'm running Primed Flow once again, which allows me to stay in Macabre for a very long time, especially with all the efficiency. Then I have Primed Continuity to balance out Fleeting Expertise, and then it's just a buttload of power strength. So I'm running Ogre Secrets, Power Drift, Blind Rage, that's 2 ranks from the top, and Umbral Intensify for a grand total of 270% power strength as well as some tower resist. I'm also running Umbral Intensify, which gives me 500% extra health as well as more tower resist, and I finished it off with a fully ranked Streamline and Fleeting Expertise. Now, I did unfortunately had to sacrifice Straight, so Dense Macabre doesn't cover as big of an area, but it suits me a lot more because, as I've mentioned already, I prefer to play solo a lot of the time, so I wanted something that's more sustainable. Now, the damage on this setup is quite, yeah, it's not bad. And the funny thing about this is that this is still not the maximum amount of damage the Revenant can do. You can still put in Umbral Fiber, which will buff Umbral Intensify, and you can put in Transient Fortitude and max out Blind Rage. The energy drain on Macabre would be preposterously high, but you could technically get more damage out of this. Now, this is of course the build that I'll be using on my Revenant personally, because why not? But of course, just like any other Umbral build, you don't have to use it to make the frame good. You know, this is the big boy build. This is the I'm gonna sell one kidney to afford all the Forma kind of setup because I really like this frame. But it's really not that big of a deal, because if I didn't have the Forma, or the Platinum in this case, because I ran out of Forma halfway through, I would be more than happy to run the first or the second build depending on what I wanted to do with it. They're more than good enough. But I personally see this as sort of the ultimate build that I would work towards if I really liked Revenant, which I do. He's a fun frame. But anyway, I think I've been rambling for long enough, so I thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.